Chapter 4, The Plan. Alright, time to end this, Tamura smirked. Yes, let's finish him, Izuku chuckled, clicking a button. They were currently playing a video game called Blood Rage, a multiplayer game based in a post-apocalyptic society. Izuku and Tamura were still on the final boss of the game after dying several times to it. It took about a month for Tamura Shigaraki to become comfortable with apotheosis. Comfortable enough to discuss ideas and strategies with each other. Usually over the video games they played together. His strategy was always to go for the weak points of his opponents, while Izuku preferred to create an opening or weak point himself most of the time. For example, when they discussed how to beat All Might, Shigaraki wanted him to be beaten down by a special creature that Izuku had yet to meet called Nomu, but Izuku argued that it would be better to wait it out until the hero reached his limit then crush him. Izuku found Tamura Shigaraki easy enough to get along. Unlike Kaken, who despised everything Izuku did and said, Tamura actually listened most of the time. Under Sensei's orders, he was told to learn everything he could from apotheosis. At first Izuku thought Tamura was the leader of the League of Villains, until he met the mysterious figure through the monitor screen that Shigaraki revered above everything. That man asked to be called Sensei, so like Tamura he too called him that. Other than a few minor orders and advice, the man left him alone. Damn it. Tamura growled, disintegrating his controller after they died to the boss again. Don't worry, we'll get him eventually, Izuku said cheerfully. What makes you so hopeful? The irritated villain asked. When you live in a world where everything is against you, then you have to remain optimistic, even if everyone tells you to give up. I should give up? No, you should give up, Izuku said in one breath. Sorry, did I go off again? He sometimes had moments while hanging out at the bar. Certain topics would trigger him and he would go off on rants about how this world's hero society was so unfair. Being around Shigaraki always brought out the worst in him for some reason. Not that the older boy minded. I need to get back to work and you need another controller. Izuku stood up and walked over to bar. Kirajiri-san, could you please send me to the lab? The villain bartender nodded his mist-covered head and opened a portal for by Tamura. He waved as he walked through the portal. What is he always working on there? Shigaraki asked with genuine curiosity. I don't know myself, Kirajiri said while cleaning an empty glass. The times I've been there I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. Apotheosis likes to work on multiple projects at once. The lad. Taking off his white hoodie, Izuku placed over a chair and walked over to computer. Over the period of his first month with the lead, he used the money he saved up from the robberies to have equipment, computer parts and materials secretly sent to a nearby location, and with a little help from Kirajiri had all of it transported to his new lab. After that it took him a week to get fully set up. Back to work, Izuku smiled to himself. He loved his lab. He loved finally having a place all for him, a place he could work on all of his inventions and conduct his research. A nice little building where he could be cut off from the cruel outside world. Walking by each table he checked up on the progress of each project. The carbon fiber armor was coming along nicely. It was a special material originally used to capture and detain villains. Izuku figured out that it could be used for a thin lightweight body armor. It was also incredibly malleable, making it easy to conform to the shape of his body. Next was the power glove, a device worn on his hand that fired compressed energy waves from the palms and knuckles. It wasn't the Infinity Gauntlet, just a basic weapon to fight with until he could fashion the gauntlet. This was powered by 8 battery cells that resembled canisters along the sides of the device that were designed to be immediately ejected should they run out or become damaged, to prevent corrosive fluid from leaking out and causing harm to him. The hover drones were pretty much finished. Small flying cameras that also recorded data on quirks the same way his scouter did. These drones were equipped with lightweight metals in the body and propellers to keep them silent and unnoticeable. The whole idea was to spy on heroes and any quirk user that catches his interest, but even if the drones were caught it wouldn't matter thanks to a special program that deleted all information should such a thing occur. No one would be able to trace it back to Izuku thanks to his brilliant foresight. Sitting in a cushioned armchair, Izuku pressed a button on the side and a keyboard attached to mechanical arms rose up out of the floor, situating itself in a reachable distance in front of him. A large screen then switched on, booting up his computer. Files. Typing away at the keyboard he brought up the theoretical formula that was the basis for all his research into quirks. According to the equations for the stones to work, he couldn't just jam a bunch of quirks together. They had to fit like a jigsaw puzzle. The problem that Izuku was facing was finding the right quirks and getting a DNA sample. He did have a lead on that though. a Quirk research laboratory in Hosu City. Supposedly they stored blood samples from various heroes and citizens with quirks, all of which were donated to further the study of quirks. If Izuku could gain access, he could acquire enough DNA samples to start working on the stones. He already had some ideas for type of quirks he needed. For the space stone he needed teleportation quirks. Unfortunately for Izuku, warping quirks were very rare and hard to come by. Luckily for him, Kurogiri-san had such a quirk. His DNA would be a prime candidate for that stone. The time stone would be a challenge. Izuku had yet to come across a quirk that could manipulate time in any way. Until he could get into the Hosu lab and find out for himself, he had no leads on that one yet. The power stone, like the time stone, Izuku had yet to find a good lead on. There were plenty of candidates, but none that fit the requirements of creating an all-powerful quirk. Perhaps he would have to combine a few if it really came down to it. The reality stone was complicated. This is where his formula would be put to the ultimate test. For this one, Izuku needed multiple quirks that allow for the manipulation of matter. There were many quirks out there with various degrees of power and range. Even his own mother had a low-level telekinesis. Once he had the DNA samples, he just had to extract the components from their genes that allowed them to bend matter to their will and mesh them together to create an all-powerful quirk. As for the soul stone, he honestly had no idea what to do. There was no measurable science that could determine what a soul was. Are the soul and mind the same thing? Just what is a soul anyway? Until he came to a conclusion, he would put this stone on hold. There was also the issue as to what to make the gauntlet out of. Regular titanium wouldn't cut it. In fact, any material he could think of wouldn't be strong enough to house the stones. Something else was required, something new. Enough of that, he had to get his gear ready. He'd worry about the stones later. Izuku wanted to be fully prepared for what Tamura Shigaraki had planned, in case he had to tag along. Flashback. Kill All Might. Izuku stated with raised brows. You were serious about that? Of course I was. Tamura glared at him past the fingers that hid his face. Are you in or not? Why do you want to kill him? Izuku asked. He's the symbol of peace, the pillar of heroic strength. If I topple him, the rest of the hero society will follow, Shigaraki explained gleefully. That's not enough, Izuku said, interrupting whatever rant he was about to go on. What did you say? Shigaraki growled. How dare this little bastard disagree with him? I'm just saying it will take more than that to destroy the hero society. Izuku chewed on the knuckles of his leather gloves as he paced the bar. You told me that you wanted people to lose faith in heroes, right? But people don't lose hope just like, he snapped his fingers to emphasize. It takes a while, trust me, I know. You have to wear them down, Tamura, break them down little by little, then deliver the final blow in one big blast that crushes any and all hopes and dreams. Izuku yelled, thinking about how for years he was told by everybody that he couldn't be a hero. Then the final nail in the coffin cemented it when the #1 hero himself said the same thing. That's right, he knew how to absolutely crush someone's spirit. The same way the world did to him. Then what do you suggest, strategist? Tamura sneered at him. Well, since you're so dead set on killing All Might, go ahead and do that, Izuku went on. You'll also have to take out Endeavor after that, since he'll be taking All Might's place as the next #1 hero. Then the next and the next and the next. Izuku repeated it a few times to make a point. It will take some time, but eventually the hero society will crumble like a house of cards. I don't care how many heroes I have to kill, Tamura spat. That's my advice to you. I am the strategist, as you said. Izuku would have smirked at him if the scarf wasn't hiding the lower half of his face. End flashback. Oh Tamura. You can't destroy this hero society no matter how hard you try, you're just one person with one lead. Izuku smiled to himself, thinking about how pointless Shigaraki's goal was. Why destroy society? Why not change the current society for the better? That's what Izuku Midoriya planned to do. Make a new, better world that would never look down on the weak and quirkless like himself. As for killing All Might, he didn't really want to do that either. He would assist Tamura as best he could, but he really didn't think anything they did would work. The only thing powerful enough to beat him would be his Infinity Gauntlet once it was finished. Izuku wouldn't kill him though, he'd let him live to watch him win. He wanted All Might to see how wrong he was about him. That a quirkless boy could become a hero. Not just a hero, but also the most powerful being in the world. I really hope the gauntlet works. It has to. The universe robbed me of a quirk, it can't take this from me too. A few months later. School had started and he finally moved out of his apartment and into the dorms of his new high school. He received a very tear-filled goodbye from his mother with another promise to visit on weekends and holidays. The arrangement he had with the lead worked out really well. After classes he would receive a text giving him a nearby location within walking distance. Once there, Kirajiri would warp him to his lab or to the bar if he was needed for a meeting. Right now the meeting was currently running late, with Tomura having failed to show up for the past 30 minutes. Getting bored, Izuku took out his computer and began going through his data on quirks until he arrived. What is this? Izuku was sitting at the bar looking over some files on his laptop when Shigaraki appeared through a portal and slapped the phone in front of him. Is this why you called me here? Just look at it. Tomura hissed. Picking up the phone, he noticed a photo on it. It looked like a class schedule. That is next week's schedule for UA. Look. All Might will be leading a class of wannabe heroes in a rescue exercise in facility called the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. I take it you want to use this as an opportunity to mount an attack and kill him? Izuku asked with a sigh at his colleague's impatience. Alright, I'm getting the board. You're getting the board? Kirajiri asked. I'm getting the board, Izuku reaffirmed. What the hell is the board? Tomura asked. Izuku went behind the bar, into a cabinet, and pulled out a Japanese version of the board game Risk and placed it on the counter. This is the board. Sensei asked me to explain things in a simpler way to you, so this is as simple as I can get. He asked Kirajiri to draw a map on a large sheet of paper of the USJ facility based off the info that Shigaraki photographed. Hey, where did you even get this info? Izuku questioned while they waited for Kirajiri to finish. I snuck into UA, the pale blue-haired young man stated like it was no big deal. Ha! Even I wouldn't dare attempt that, the quirkless boy responded. I broke the defenses and let the eager media reporters in, Shigaraki chuckled. Look at you, Tomura-san, you're learning, Izuku beamed proud of him. Shut up and get to work, strategist, Tomura glared at him harshly. Once Kirajiri finished drawing the map, he set it down on the counter. These 20 blue soldiers will be the Class 1A students, and these 60 red pieces will be the league. Placing the tiny plastic men on the map, he dug out the special gold piece. This gold one will be All Might, and this green one will be that Nomu guy who you still won't let me meet. It's best you didn't. Kirajiri knew Apotheosis was still just a kid and probably wouldn't have the stomach to see that thing, and better he not know how it was made. So Tomura, you first. Izuku handed the reins to him. What's your plan? Why you asking me? You're the strategist, Shigaraki snarled at him furiously. Yes, but Sensei wants you to learn, and I agree. The green-haired boy pointed at the tiny men and silently asked him to come up with his best plan. All Might's the final boss, so we wear him down with the forces and then Nomu delivers the final blow. Izuku just shook his head negatively. You're forgetting something. Class 1A isn't just going to sit there, and there's probably other pro heroes teaching there besides All Might. The boy chewed on his gloves again. A bad habit he was starting to develop with all these challenges the League of Villains threw at him. I recommend dividing our forces, set some aside to deal with the students and teachers. Fine, then I'll save Nomu for All Might, Tomura said while lightly scratching his neck. Good idea, keep our best card for the big man. Izuku began moving the pieces on the map around. Kirajiri can warp large amounts of people, so let's have him split the students up. Send them to the different disaster zones of the USJ. He looked at the dark misty man expectantly. I can do this, the bartender responded. Then while your forces keep them busy, Nomu takes on All Might. Chewing on his fingers, a thought occurred to Izuku. I'm not 100% sure this will work though. Why not? Shigaraki asked. It sounded good to him. There's still too many unknown variables. Izuku looked at the map and all the plastic men set up around it. We don't know what type of quirks the students have. We also don't know for sure if All Might will be there. Yes we do, Tomura argued. He's on the schedule. But schedules can change, Izuku replied. Look, you said All Might has a limit, right? Well, if that's the case, he might change his schedule around depending on his hero job, and if that's the case, he will probably be swapped out for a different teacher. We could be doing all of this for nothing. Slow down, Kirajiri told him. The boy went off speaking too fast again. Sorry, but you get my point. After a long awkward silence, Tomura Shigaraki finally spoke. We're still mounting the attack. We won't get another opportunity like this again, he said with finality. Okay, suit yourself, Izuku shrugged and stood up from the bar stool. He wouldn't even be there during the attack anyway. Just when he thought that, the monitor screen came on signaling that Sensei wanted to have a word with them. A decent plan, but should things change like you said, Apotheosis, it would be best if you were there to advise Tomura. Of all the luck. Sensei just had to be listening in on their conversation, and now Izuku was pretty much ordered to go along with this attack. Of course, Sensei. Izuku nodded to the mysterious leader of the league. Oh well, at least he could collect data on quirks and test out the hover drones. Who knows? Maybe one of the students would have a viable quirk that could be used to create his stones. Chapter 5, The First Battle. Stand back. Aizawa ordered his students. The dark portal opened up wider and out stepped as a gray shaggy-haired young man dressed in all black, covered in severed pale hands. Looks like your hunch was right, he's not here, Tamura said with irritation. I thought schools always follow a schedule. See, I told you there was a chance that All Might wouldn't be here. From behind him another walked out. This villain was shorter than the first. Dressed in a white hooded long coat, underneath that appeared some sort of gray form-fitting leathery material that resembled hexagonal scales going all the way up to his neck, covering his mouth and hiding his face even more. Black pants with gray armor-covered knee pads with shin guards, and matching boots. You must always plan for these little hiccups in your schemes, Tamura. There also seemed to be some strange metal device on his left arm resembling a big metal gauntlet with what looked like small round vents on the sides and knuckles. Plan B then, Shigaraki smirked as the portal behind them grew wider and more villains came forward through it. 13. Get them out of here. Aizawa shouted to the other pro-hero. The hero dressed in a spacesuit quickly began herding the class towards the exit. Oh no, they're all getting away, Izuku said with mock concern. Kirajiri. Shigaraki ordered. I'll split them up. The dark mist turned into the shape of a man, then extended quickly into a cloud that rushed towards the students. Good afternoon everyone, Kirajiri said appearing before them. We are the League of Villains. Bakugo tried to blast him but failed as the mist spread out and enveloped almost all of the students excluding Ida, who quickly moved out of the way, and 13 who wasn't close enough. While that was happening, Aizawa engaged the villains head-on, using his quirk and capture weapon to take them out one by one. This is going well so far, Izuku commented. Thinking back to the students, he remembered he saw Kaken among them. Of course he got into the hero class, with his unfairly amazing quirk. Did you not do psychological profiles on potential students? Did anybody on the staff take a peek at his middle school record? Because if they looked into any of that, Izuku knew that they would kick him to the curb. Or was his oh-so-powerful quirk too appealing to let him go into another hero academy? This quirk-biased system was one of the many things he vowed to change when he took control. People like Katsuki Bakugo will never be allowed to be heroes in his world. I wonder, seeing as Tamura was busy watching Eraserhead fight and not listening to him, he decided to go off on his own and see if Katsuki's amazing quirk could be defeated by his technology. Kirajiri-san? Could you warp me somewhere? If he could prove that, then quirks weren't as special as everybody thinks. Shouldn't you stick around to advise Shigaraki? That is your job, isn't it? The dark misty bartender said. All Might isn't here yet, so he doesn't need me, Izuku said calmly until a dark look came over him. I just wanted to say hi to an old friend. Very well. Ruined zone. These guys are weak. Katsuki Bakugo smirked as he knocked another villain out with a well-placed explosion. Yet, not very manly to attack a bunch of students in broad daylight, Ijiro Kirishima said while punching another villain's lights out. That was the last of this wave so far, giving them time to make a plan or regroup with the others. Oh, I agree entirely, a voice said coming from the shadows. Standing there was the shorter white hooded villain that was with the hand guy. I thought for sure these guys could at least take down a single class of first years, he sighed in disappointment. Who the hell are you? Katsuki barked. I'm with the League of Villains. I'm the strategist. My name is Apotheosis. Izuku introduced himself with a friendly wave. Nice to meet you. He didn't have to worry about Kaken recognizing his voice. The device in his mask deepened it a bit. And why should I care? Bakugo sneered at him. Normally I wouldn't get involved as I'm just here to advise Tamura, but I kind of want to test something. The honest truth is that Izuku wanted payback against Bakugo. The whole testing out some of his new devices against him to prove his quirk wasn't that great was just a bonus. I heard you Katsuki Bakugo got the highest score on the entrance exam. I wanted to see for myself how strong you really are. Wish granted. Bakugo came charging at him, fist raised to deal out an explosion point blank on the villain. Izuku smirked underneath his mask and pressed a button on his belt, activating his portable force field. The blast was repelled, having hit the invisible barrier, creating a blue ripple effect over it. Not bad, 30% strength was enough, pressing a few buttons on his scouter to record all the data. I'm not done yet. Bakugo came at him with both hands. Once again the barrier held no matter how many blasts he gave it. Is that it? Izuku chuckled, seeing his force field stop Kaken in his tracks. If only he had this years ago, that would have been nice. You fucking bastard. Dude, calm down. Kirishima stopped him with a hand on the shoulder. He's trying to rile you. Something slammed into the redhead's chest, resembling a thick blue beam, cutting him off. The blast sent him straight through the wall and some distance outside. Sorry, but you don't interest me at the moment, Izuku apologized, lowering his power glove. What was that? Bakugo wondered. He assumed this villain had some sort of barrier quirk, but that beam of energy came from the device on his left arm. Where were we? The disguised Izuku asked. Oh yeah. This. He made a fist with his glove and waved it in a wide arc. The vents on the knuckles spread a large crescent of plasma-like energy that tore up the walls of the building. With quick reflexes, Katsuki ducked underneath it and fired a blast in response. Izuku was violently knocked back by the explosion, off his feet and onto the floor. Ah. His fireproof cloak and carbon fiber armor protected him, but it still hurt when he landed on his back and got the air knocked out of him. How do you like that, scum? Katsuki charged him again. Izuku activated the shield in a panic, cranking it up to 50%. Once again the explosions were safely repelled. You're as rough as ever, the villain whispered to himself. Firing more energy from his power glove, he made sure to watch carefully for any more tricky maneuvers. As soon as he spotted one, he moved into attack. This Bakugo leaped over the beam, using his explosions to propel himself up and towards the villain, who grinned gleefully at his former bully's predictability. Got you. Izuku smirked underneath his mask, activating the shield, this time widening the range with a simple dial on his belt. Katsuki was caught by the force field, not expecting it to increase in circumference, and sent hurtling back. Damn it, the blonde boy groaned as he hit the floor. It felt like he went chest first into a wall. As soon as he looked up, he was blasted by the other's energy beam and sent crashing through the wall just like Kirishima. A power cell was ejected from the glove, but Izuku ignored it. The power glove was designed to detach the cells when they became damaged or empty. Casually strolling down the steps of the building, he headed down the hall and outside to face his former bully. Who knew revenge would feel so great? Katsuki coughed as he struggled to stand. Whatever hit him hurt worse than that force field thing. Oh my. Do you need a hand? Izuku mocked as he skipped over to him. Shut up, you hooded freak. Bakugo screamed at him. HMPH. Temper problems, that's going in your file, the villain chuckled, pointing his glove at the boy. Die. Bakugo leaped at him with renewed strength. Izuku narrowly avoided being hit, having dodged backwards. The hero in training didn't let up, having figured out that it took a few seconds for the barrier to activate. It was all the villain could do just to dodge. He couldn't get any distance to use his power glove and couldn't get a moment to switch on his force field. Izuku gasped in pain as he took several hits to the torso. Bakugo grabbed his wrist and used his explosions to propel himself in a half circle and throw the villain a good distance away. As he tried to stand, the hero student followed up his attack by blasting the other in the back. He didn't stop there though. The boy continued to attack the villain over and over again, using his fists and explosions. If it wasn't for his armor, then Midori, I figured he'd be a broken mess right now. Finally, after what seemed like forever, Izuku managed to see an opening. Grabbing Bakugo's right arm just as he attacked and flipping him over his body to slam him on the ground. With that, he was able to buy himself some time to get a good safe distance away. I'm starting to get disappointed, Mr. Number 1. Izuku called out in an effort to rile the other up, hiding the fact that he was badly bruised and in quite a bit of pain. If this is all you can do, then this school's standards have really dropped. Alright, that's it. Bakugo stood up and pointed one of his grenade gauntlets at his opponent. Oh? What's that supposed to do? Izuku mused while keeping a cautious hand on the button for his shield. Eat this. Pulling the pin out, what followed was a massive torrent of an explosion that engulfed everything in its path. In a mad panic, Izuku switched on his force field and cranked it up to 100%. When the dust settled, the surrounding ruins of the zone were nearly destroyed, but Izuku still stood there perfectly fine. What was that? The villain stuttered. He had deduced, based on what he knew about Kaken's quirk, that those gauntlets must be able to store a large quantity of his sweat to fire off an explosion of that magnitude. To think this school would let him have something like that. Was UA run by insane people? The bastard broke his shield too. The blast completely overloaded it and fried the power circuits. How are you still alive? Bakugo looked surprised that the villain was still standing. So you were trying to kill me? Not very heroic, Izuku scolded him. Reaching to his belt, he grabbed a special device he made for emergencies in case he needed to stop a hero or slow down a more powerful one. It looked like a hand-sized oval-shaped metal capsule with a small button on the top. Catch. Pressing the button, Izuku tossed it at the volatile teen and waited. As if. Bakugo tried to dodge, but for some reason the capsule went off almost immediately. An explosion of lime green sticky foam followed, trapping the blonde and preventing him from using his quirk to escape. The more he struggled, the more stuck he became. "Do you like it?" Izuku asked. "I call it trap foam," he chuckled as he watched Bakugo scream and squirm. "Everyone always assumes a grenade or capsule will go off in 3 seconds. That's why my trap foam grenade is designed to go off in 2 seconds. It really catches you off guard, doesn't it?" "Damn it." Katsuki continued to try and fight his way out of the foam. "Well, it's been fun." Izuku pointed his power glove at the hero trainee's face. "Good night." As soon as he fired it, someone grabbed his glove and pulled it off course just in the nick of time for the attack to just graze past Bakugo. Huh. Pulling his hand away while another power cell was ejected, he turned to face the other UA student he forgot about. Attacking someone who's down. That's not cool, man. Kirishima stood protectively in front of Bakugo. "Not a scratch on you, even after a full blast," Izuku said with amazement. "You must have an impressive quirk." "Thanks. You're pretty tough yourself for a villain," Kirishima complimented while keeping his guard up. Anyone who could keep up with Bakugo wasn't to be trifled with. "Me? I'm just a strategist and an advisor," Izuku shrugged. "I shouldn't even be here in the battle, but I wanted to test something on Mr. Number 1 over there." "Test what?" That would be telling," Izuku chastised while shaking his finger at him. "I'm a villain after all, and as a villain I don't go spouting my secrets and diabolical plans to the heroes, unless of course he already had the upper hand, or a certain infinity gauntlet. But I am a nice guy, so I'll just walk away and leave you two alone. He'd already proven himself here anyway." "You think I'm going to let you leave?" Kirishima stood in an attack stance. "As the League of Villains strategist, let me offer you some advice." Izuku pointed his power glove at him. "One blast is all it would take to knock you out of the way and leave your friend open for my follow-up attack." The villain's eyes filled with mirth as he watched the redhead sweat. "You could dodge it, of course, but that would mean your buddy gets hit instead of you." "Damn it." Kirishima glanced nervously back at the trapped Bakugo. "Those are your options, attack me or let me go." Izuku turned around and walked away. "It was nice meeting you, but I got to get back to Tomura-san." Once he was completely out of sight, the redhead released the breath he was holding. "That guy was smart, too smart," he sighed as he turned and attempted to get Bakugo out of the pile of sticky foam. Center of USJ. "I'm back." Izuku made his way towards the center, stepping over the many unconscious villain pawns they brought along. He noticed the pro-hero Eraserhead was beaten into a bloody mess with a large hideous muscle-bound creature pinning him down. "What'd I miss?" he asked as he turned off his voice changer. "Where the hell were you?" Tomura demanded. "I had to bring out Nomu early." "That's Nomu." Izuku took a good look at the thing. Working in the underground for various criminals and villains let him see a lot of weird and horrifying things. That Nomu with its large black body, beak face, and exposed brain was definitely going on his top 10. "Answer the question, strategist." "Whoa. Calm down, Tomura." Izuku stepped back and held his hands up in non-confrontational gesture. "I just wanted to test my new device." Well, it was still a half-truth. "It took longer than I thought." That Bakugo student was a tough one. Having heard the last part of what he said, Aizawa opened his eyes. "This kid looks like a student himself." Going by the height and voice, the homeroom teacher wondered what kind of powerful quirk the hooded villain possessed to take down someone of Katsuki Bakugo's level. "I don't know why you're so angry. All Might hasn't even shown up yet." Izuku crossed his arms. "Exactly." Shigaraki began manically scratching at his neck. "He isn't here." "Why isn't he here?" "I want him here." "Jay, just take a deep breath." Izuku backed away nervously. "Tell me why he isn't here, strategist." Tomura directed his anger at the one who helped him plan this. "Before I turn you into dust. If you just let me." Izuku paused as his scouter alerted him to something. Someone with a high quirk level was fast approaching the facility. "Wait. There's only one person that could have a quirk level over 100. The doors to the USJ burst open, revealing a tall, imposing figure. All Might had arrived. "He's here." Tomura couldn't hide his excitement. "Indeed he is." Izuku would have licked his lips if he wasn't wearing a mask over his mouth. All the raw data he was about to collect almost had him salivating. Great. I'm nearly as obsessive as Tamura. You villains made a mistake to attack my students. All Might spoke, getting everyone's full attention. He wasn't even smiling. Why? Because I am here. With speed faster than any of them could see, he knocked out every villain he passed, rescued Izawa from Nomu's clutches and placed him safely away from the soon-to-be battlefield. This is going to be amazing. Izuku was having a huge fanboy moment over this. He may not like All Might as a hero anymore, but he couldn't deny how much he admired his power. Power that he aspired to surpass when he finished the Gauntlet. Pressing a button on his scouter, he ordered the all-hover drones to move to his location. Izuku wanted them all to record this fight. Nomu. Get in. On Shigeruki's command, the hulking creature charged All Might. You're a big one. The #1 hero blocked Nomu's punch and returned with one of his own, but it seemed ineffective. Every punch caused Nomu's skin to ripple and shake, but not a single scratch or bruise. That won't work. He's got a shock absorption quirk, Tamura said while watching the fight. Wow. That's clever, Izuku complimented. He'll need something else though. Super strength coupled with a shock absorption, while effective, won't be enough to beat someone like All Might, he mumbled off while chewing on his glove. Shut up and watch. Tamura smirked as he waited for Kurogiri to make his move. It happened when All Might tried to suplex Nomu. A portal opened up underneath them. All Might and Nomu had the upper half of their bodies coming out the other end of the portal. With the beast holding him in place, he would be cut in half as soon as Kurogiri closed it. Game over. Shigeruki was overjoyed over the death All Might that he was about to witness. Or he would have if an explosion didn't knock Kurogiri away, disrupting his concentration, followed by a trail of ice coming in to freeze Nomu's arm and leg. Note to self, increase thickness of the trap foam, Izuku pondered as he watched Kaken pin Kurogiri down by his metal collar. That red-headed boy must have used his hardening quirk to claw through it and free him sooner than Izuku expected. The young villain's attention was also drawn to where the ice came from, and he spotted a student with red and white hair, a scar on the left of his face, and ice covering the left of his body. An ice quirk, and a powerful one to boot, while Shigeruki went off on some monologue about how All Might was just an advocator of violence. Izuku was downloading all the information his drones collected into his scouter and getting everything he could on the ice boy's quirk. We might want to start planning a retreat. Izuku walked over and whispered to his leader. Seeing as how Nomu was half frozen and Kurogiri was pinned down. Retreat. Shigeruki hissed at him. Shock absorption isn't the only thing Nomu possesses. Everyone watched as the creature's frozen limbs shattered, then to their horror it completely regenerated them in seconds. Super regeneration. Didn't I tell you, All Might? Nomu was created specifically to destroy you. But still, Izuku said to himself. Nomu. Kill them all. Tamura shouted. The beak-faced monster ran forward, attempting to crush the first person that it laid eyes on, which just happened to be Bakugo. Luckily All Might saved him, at the cost of Kurogiri now free to move and fall back next to his comrades. I need you all to take Izawa and leave the area, All Might said, keeping his guard up and eyes on the villains. Fuck that. Bakugo shouted. Go now. All Might ordered as he dashed at the Nomu with unbelievable speed. The two began trading blows at a rapid pace. He's right, we're no help here, Todoroki said, placing a hand on Bakugo's shoulder. We need to get Izawa to safety. Begrudgingly accepting the truth, Bakugo helped Kirishima pick up their unconscious teacher, sending one last murderous look towards the white-hooded villain that defeated him. Weren't you listening? Tamura asked as the two continued to pummel one another. Nomu possesses shock absorption. Absorption, not nullification. The hero smiled. That's when Izuku noticed that All Might's punches were targeting specific areas, repeatedly nailing the creature in those exact spots. Even he knew that the absorption quirk wouldn't keep up for long. In the end, Nomu was sent hurtling in the air from one massive punch and right through the dome of the USJ, much to the villain's shock. Uh-oh. Izuku was nervous and scared. Not just because now they were up against All Might without their muscle, but with how furious he knew Tamura would be. He cheated. Shigeruki snarled while clawing at his neck. We were wrong, Sensei was wrong. He's not weakened. No, look at him, he's definitely gotten weaker, Kurogiri pointed out. Izuku noticed the smoke starting to come off the hero's body, just like when he met him on that roof. That meant he'd soon revert back to his true powerless and emaciated form. We can still kill him, Tamura. We can't, the UA staff will be here soon. Izuku knew they were coming, just a small blip on his scouter a few minutes ago, but rapidly getting closer. We need to reach Reed, he advised and was of course ignored. You're right Kurogiri, let's end this. Leaving their strategist behind, Tomura ran at All Might, who was still standing there unable to move or risk transforming back, and the warp gate bartender followed to assist. This won't go well, Izuku watched anxiously. Like a self-fulfilling prophecy, a bullet went right through Tomura's outstretched hand, stopping him in his tracks. The teachers had arrived, most likely because one of the students escaped and went to inform them. As the remaining villains were quickly dealt with, Tomura took a few more bullets to the legs and was promptly covered up by Kurogiri. All Might, with the last of his strength, attempted to blow the mist away with a punch, but Izuku stood in his way. At the same time as his punch, Izuku raised his power glove and increased the energy output to 100%. The resulting collision completely destroyed the boy's glove and sent him back, crashing into Shigaraki's hunched-over body and through Kurogiri's well-placed portal. What was that? All Might wondered as he returned to his true form. There was a burst of energy from that hooded villain's fist that was able to negate his weakened punch. The hideout. Get the hell off of me. Tomura violently shoved Apotheosis away from him. Izuku winced as he landed on his injured arm. Are you alright? Kurogiri asked the kid, having witnessed him nullify All Might's punch. I'm fine. Izuku gently pulled off what was left of his power glove, pretty much wrecked beyond repair. Nearly dislocated joints in my arm, a few bruises, but nothing's broken, he said while rubbing his sore arm. Him? What about me? I was shot several times, Shigaraki whined. We lost all our underlings and All Might is no closer to being dead. He sounded like he was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Can I get an ice pack, Kurogiri-san? Izuku asked politely while taking a seat on the couch. Kurogiri nodded and went around the counter to get some first aid supplies for the two of them. We even lost Nomu. Tomura fumed while clutching his hand. I said that there were too many unknown variables, Izuku said in a coy I told you so manner. We didn't know what the students' quirks were and there was a good chance All Might wouldn't be there immediately, causing us to exhaust too many of our forces early on. In the end I was right. We lost. I lost. Shigaraki kept repeating that to himself. After Kurogiri handed Izuku the ice pack, he then took the bandages and started to tend to Tomura's wounds. I failed, Sensei. There's no such thing as failure. Izuku stared at the wall as he placed the ice pack on his forearm. Keep trying again and again until you succeed. That's my motto. He turned and faced the injured older boy. With all the data I collected, we'll be more prepared next time, and if we fail again then we'll learn and try again. Everyone told me that I was weak, useless and couldn't do anything. Look at me now. I ended up taking on the best student in the hero class and I won. Well said, Apotheosis. The screen came on, revealing a static void in Sensei's voice. I agree completely. Tomura, you have to learn and keep going. Sooner or later you will succeed and become a symbol of terror to all the world. Tomura shakily nodded in respect. As for you, Apotheosis, I would like to have a word with you about the data you collected and what you plan to do with it concerning the League. Oh. Alright, well, for starters I was able to compile a... Izuku was silenced by a light chuckle coming from the screen. No, not here. I will speak with you in person. Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat when he heard that order. Kurogiri the bartender opened a portal that would lead him to the mysterious leader of the League of Villains. With no choice but to obey, Izuku nervously placed the ice pack down and made his way through Warp Gate. Chapter 6, The Blood. It's nice to meet you face to face. Izuku's eyes widened when he finally got a look at Sensei in person. He wasn't sure if that face-to-face remark was a joke or not, because the man didn't have one. Just an eyeless bald man covered in scar tissue, with only a mouth to speak with. The man wore a simple suit with various tubes and wires hooked up to him from the life support machines around him. And nice to meet you to Sensei, the boy stuttered nervously. Izuku was shaking with fear. This man had an aura of raw limitless power which made him absolutely terrifying, even with all the medical devices surrounding him. It also excited and fascinated the boy, because it was the same presence that he aspired to one day have. There's no need to fear me, child, the villain said with a calm demeanor. I have no intention of harming such a valuable asset to the League. That still didn't lighten the mood. I'm not really that valuable, sir. I'm just the strategist. Izuku rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. Yes, but it was because of you that my apprentice Tomura is learning to think in different ways and see plans from other angles, Sensei praised. For that you have my thanks. Happy to help, sir, Izuku bowed respectfully. Which brings me to my next topic. The mood suddenly changed and the boy felt like a canary in front of a very big and hungry cat. I would like you to imagine my surprise when I found out what you were really working on in that lab of yours. I'm not sure what you mean. Izuku tried to play it off, but on the inside he was worried that his boss found out about his secret project. Very clever of you, my boy, to keep all of those devices, inventions and blueprints laying around. Sensei grinned with his only remaining facial feature. That alone would satisfy a normal person's curiosity. Even all your files are so full of designs and notes on quirks, no one would think to look a bit deeper. Izuku's eyes widened. Sensei went through his files. How? When? As if reading his thoughts, the man answered. Why do you think I ordered you to go with Tamura during the attack? Of course I wanted you to advise him, but I also wanted to take a look at what you were doing in the lab we so generously gave you. I can see how this looks. The green-haired boy's mind was running a mile a minute to think of a solution out of this. Running was impossible, so that just left talking his way out. Your true files were well protected. I'm astounded by your technological skills, but one of the quirks I possess allowed me to bypass and unlock them, Sensei proclaimed. One of the quirks? Izuku wondered what he meant by that. Did he have multiple quirks? Then I found this strange formula that even I didn't fully understand. Lists of potential quirks, notes on genetics, and a blueprint for a device you dubbed the Infinity Gauntlet. The boy felt his stomach drop at that. So he knew that much. Well, he was as good as dead now. I must say, I'm truly impressed. Huh. Izuku's brain went on pause, fully expecting to be chastised, and probably attacked. You plan to harness the DNA of multiple quirk users to create the ultimate quirks in the form of a stone which you will then attach to the gauntlet for you to use, all for one summed up. It's pure genius. You like it? Izuku was truly confused. Not expecting this sort of reaction from his boss. It's just, I thought that you'd be angry. Angry? Sensei smiled. Why would I be angry? It's perfectly understandable that a quirkless child would want to empower himself. In fact, you're the first one to actually do it. Izuku's green eyes widened even further. Forgive me, but I looked into you. I first investigated that academy you're going to, found a list of the first year students, and it wasn't that hard to discern who you were. For me at least. I have no doubt that the heroes will never figure out your true identity. Izuku Midoriya. Thankaya. The boy felt completely exposed. Since the man knew who he was, there was no point in wearing this disguise anymore, so Izuku dropped the hood and removed the mouth armor cover. No one would ever suspect that a quirkless boy was such a villain or what he was up to until it's far too late to stop him. All for one continued to praise him for his cleverness. It truly amazed the old villain that this boy had placed himself in the perfect position to achieve his goals right under the nose of the hero society and the villain underworld. Yeah, Izuku chuckled, rubbing the back of his now messier mossy hair. That was kind of the idea. I wanted their completely dismissal of the quirkless to be their undoing, and it will be. The boy had a dark look come over his face when he said that. He truly despised those who looked down on the quirkless. If I hadn't found Tamura, this boy would have made a great apprentice, Sensei pondered. Alas. Izuku has his own goals that he's dead set on. He doesn't even need a teacher. A completely self-operating independent student. I want you to know, Izuku Midoriya, I fully support your project, and all for one paused, digging into what he had deduced about the boy. He knew from Izuku's prior knowledge of All Might and his weakness meant that he must have met the #1 hero in person alone. He also knew that this boy now had an extreme dislike of All Might. Putting all the pieces together, it seemed Izuku was a huge fan of heroes, particularly All Might himself, and when he did meet his hero, this poor quirkless boy that the world was practically against, must have asked the man if he could be a hero too. Like any hero or quirked individual would say, All Might told him no, that he couldn't without a quirk. He couldn't fully imagine the devastation Izuku must have felt, but it had to be soul-crushing. To be rejected by your idol in a long line of voices that said the same thing. And what did he do? Cry and lament his lot in life like all those born without a quirk did? No, Izuku decided to change the way things are and make something of his quirkless self by putting the only thing he had, his keen and powerful intellect, to the task. All for one was quite proud of him. He was also for once in his long life grateful to All Might, for it was his rejection that acted as the final nail in the coffin that brought Izuku's brilliant mind to the villain's side. It was because of this that the scarred man decided for the first time to be both kind and cruel, by saying something this boy's probably never heard his entire life. I believe you can accomplish great things. What? Izuku asked in disbelief. Did he hear that correctly? I said I believe in you. All for one couldn't see it, but he could hear the small sounds of a choked sob. Izuku fell to his knees, gripping the front of his white coat tightly. It was a very kind-hearted thing the older man did, to give this boy back the hope that was taken away, but at the same time it was cruel that a villain of all people was the one to do it. Didn't exactly paint a better picture of the world, did it? A world where heroes reject him for being powerless but villains praise him for his brilliance. It's all backwards. You believe in me, Izuku whispered while wiping his eyes. Thank you, sir. You're welcome, Sensei smiled. Now then, I have an offer you might be interested in. Later at the lab. Once he was safely warped to his lab, he finally relaxed and let the tension he had leave his body. Sensei may have been kind enough to believe in him and make him that generous offer, but he was still a very intimidating man. The boy's guard was up during the whole conversation. All for one? He wondered about the quirk Sensei possessed. He told the boy all about his quirk and what it did. Izuku wasn't entirely sure what to do with the information that he was given, deciding to instead put it to the side for now. Izuku sighed as he took off his carbon fiber armor. It was much easier to put on than it was to take off. Once it was all off, he walked shirtless over to the mirror. His chest sported a number of bruises he got from his fight with Bakugo. But beyond that, he noticed for the first time he wasn't as skinny as he used to be. It seemed the 11 months he spent working as a villain, running around doing jobs, had given him a fair bit of muscles. That wasn't enough though. If it wasn't for his devices, then Kaken would have beaten him. Izuku needed to be stronger than this. A stronger body would also probably be preferable for when he created the Gauntlet. Who knows how artificial quirks would react to his biology? It wouldn't be that difficult to bulk up more. Changing his diet, and instead of using the lift equipment to move and set up his machines in the lab, he could do it himself. Guess I should make a training plan, Izuku commented as he walked away from the mirror. Sitting at his console, he pressed a few buttons and typed in the passwords. He noticed that the security programs were broken, which meant that Sensei did indeed access them. Good thing the man supported him, or he'd feel like his privacy was violated. Now then, let's see how Class 1A did, Izuku smirked while plugging in his scouter, which contained all the footage and data that his drones acquired from the attack on USJ. The drones were destroyed in the shockwaves of All Might's fight with Nomu, but luckily everything was transferred to the scouter. He now had video footage of every student in the hero course. Their names, physical descriptions, their quirks, and their fighting styles. Maybe one of them had a quirk that would be useful for a stone. Sensei also ordered him to make a copy of data once it was compiled for Tamura to study. Then of course there was the analysis of All Might he needed to submit to both Sensei and Tamura. This is going to be a very busy night. The next day. So far we have 3 villains that were leading this attack, Detective Naoma Satsukachi explained to his friend Toshinori Yagi, otherwise known as All Might. They were both currently in the nurse's office where the hero was getting treated for his injuries and his true state from the fight at the USJ yesterday. Kirajiri, the villain that looked to be made of black mist, he seemed to possess a warping quirk. A group of villains with someone like that at their disposal can make them quite dangerous, Toshinori said sitting up in the bed. Then there's the leader, this Tamura Shigaraki. From what I heard from the students and the villains we captured, he was in charge of the League of Villains. The officer looked through his notes. He has a decaying quirk that lets him disintegrate whatever he touches. What about the third one? The hero asked. I was getting to that. From what I was able to gather, this one was the group's strategist. The detective looked up from his notes. According to the statements of young Bakugo and Kirishima, he went by the name Apotheosis. Are the two all right? Toshinori was worried as students were hurt by the villain. The two are fine. Kirishima's hardening ability protected him from the villain's power, and Bakugo was a little banged up, but has fully recovered, Naomasa said. They weren't able to figure out Apotheosis's quirk, unfortunately. Katsuki Bakugo said he fired some sort of energy from his hand and erected a barrier to defend himself, so maybe an energy manipulation quirk. Perhaps, but I did notice a device on his hand. The hero thought back to how his punch was negated. It could be a machine used to focus his quirk. In my time I've seen many heroes and villains use similar things. Naomasa looked troubled by that. Then there were the numerous handmade drones. It seemed this group had someone in the midst that was mechanically smart. It was bad enough that villains were banding together like this, but throw in an intelligent strategist, a man with a warping quirk, and someone making them weapons and devices to enhance their powers, and you got a potential disaster. Though what really troubles me is this villain's possible age. I noticed that too, All Might sighed looking down at his bony fingers. When I first arrived I thought he was a student that changed his costume going by his height, and then when he nullified my punch I got a close look at wide scared eyes. He didn't mention how familiar the eyes looked. Like he's seen them somewhere before, but couldn't place where or who. Yeah, that sounds like a kid to me, the detective commented. How sad, a voice said entering the recovery room. The two looked to see the principal of UA, a small white humanoid mouse or possibly bear named Nizu, had arrived. That someone so young turned to a life of villainy. Principal Nizu, the detective greeted. But what could make a boy turn to the side of evil? The principal asked. You sound more interested in this one villain rather than the other two, Toshinori spoke. Oh no, the others concern me as well, but I find this one more troubling, the small animal said while walking towards the two of them. Something about his villain name doesn't feel right. The word apotheosis has two meanings. The final complete development of something, Naomasa clarified, having looked up the definition himself. It can also mean the elevation of a person to divine status, essentially someone becoming a god, Nizu added. So this kid is incredibly arrogant and egotistical to give himself such a title, the detective scoffed. Most villains are. I once fought a guy who referred to himself as a destroyer of worlds, Toshinori chuckled lightly. He wasn't much of one when all it took was 2 good punches to knock him out. After a short awkward pause, All Might finally remembered the 4th villain. Hey, what about that big one I fought? We captured it, but it doesn't seem to be able to talk, nor did it resist capture or try to free itself. The other officers are under the impression that it couldn't act without orders, like a mindless doll. What bothers me is that it apparently had multiple quirks, shock absorption and super regeneration. Yet it definitely did. The hero wondered about that too. You told me there was only one person who could transfer quirks, adding more to a person if he wanted to. The detective looked at his friend. Someone who you fought before, right? It seems your old nemesis has returned, Nizu said. All Might clenched his fist in anger. That man was still out there, manipulating things from the shadows. Perhaps this league was just a front for his activities then. Didn't matter though, whatever he or the League of Villains was planning, Toshinori vowed that he would stop them. 2 weeks later. Delivery. The security guard lowered his newspaper and spotted a boy holding a package. He couldn't see his face because of the baseball cap, but the uniform told him that he was a member of the package delivery company. Probably a part-timer going by his age. I wasn't aware of any package delivery today. The guard looked at him skeptically. You do know the lab is closed? I did not. The delivery boy scratched his cheek, letting out a nervous chuckle. Haha, oops. It's fine, I can keep it here until the lab reopens tomorrow. The guard felt bad for the kid. He must be new and didn't know what he was doing. Thank you, sir. This is my first week on the job. Handing the package over to the guard, the boy smiled and pulled out a small clipboard. Can you sign here, please? Sure. The guard placed the box under his desk and took the clipboard, quickly leaving his signature on the line at the bottom before handing it back. Have a lovely day, sir. The boy left the security check-in and walked out the building with a friendly wave. Nice kid. The security guard went back to his newspaper, resigned to the fact that the unannounced delivery to the closed lab would probably be the most interesting thing that happened today. Unknown to him, the package under his desk started to vibrate lightly. It stopped and a small metal nozzle poked out of the side, releasing some sort of gas that went unnoticed. The guard started to feel sleepy and fatigued. What? He collapsed face first on the desk. A few minutes later the door opened again, revealing the delivery boy, this time dressed in his new villain costume. A bodysuit of gray carbon fiber armor that fitted his lean body tightly, black armored boots, and a white hooded long coat. He was carrying what looked like a metal briefcase. This villain stuff is getting easier, Izuku commented as he looked at the unconscious guard. He didn't even check my ID. I spent a whole day making a fake one. Walking around the desk to the computer, he placed the drive into the USB port and let his phantom program initiate into the building's security system. He also deactivated the metal detector gate. Let's get to work, Izuku smiled underneath his hood as he strolled into the elevator. Hosu Quirk Research Lab, a place that took donated blood from heroes and Quirk users to experiment and examine in the effort of further understanding the nature of quirks. It was almost too perfect. The head of research and development had a daughter who just happened to be participating in the UA Sports Festival, and the man shut down the lab and invited all of his fellow scientists to watch the event at his extravagant home. To watch his daughter take home the victory. Prideful idiot, the man's foolish arrogance created the perfect opportunity to sneak into the lab and help himself to all the blood samples. Izuku would be able to take what he needed with nobody to stop him. There was also only a single security guard working in the building today, making the young villain's job all the easier. The elevator stopped on the 6th floor. According to the information that Jiren sold him, this is where the blood was stored. Walking down the hall until he spotted the correct room number, Izuku paid no mind to the security cameras since his phantom program rendered him invisible to them. Slipping inside, he spotted a desk with a few computers and a wall with a locked metal door with the word sample storage. Keep locked. Let's begin. Izuku smirked and sat down at the computer and proceeded to hack the door. He had all the time he needed. The place would be closed during the sports festival and the guard wouldn't wake up until later tonight. When he finally cracked the system, he not only unlocked the storage vault but he accessed the list of people and quirks the samples came from. Izuku wanted to laugh with how easy this was as he printed the list out. Grabbing the papers from the machine, he made his way into the now unlocked storage. He shivered for a moment from how cold it was in here. Well, Izuku looked around at what appeared to be a small hallway with shelves on both sides where numerous blood vials were placed. Going through the list in his hand, he went through the emitter quirks first, looking for the matter manipulation that he needed for the reality stone. The young villain chewed on his gloves as he went down the list. After finding some ones that interested him, he placed the metal case he brought on the floor and opened it, revealing a portable storage unit. Telekinesis. He went down the shelves, grabbing a vial for each one and placed them in his case. Hydrokinesis. Izuku found some water manipulation quirks that would be useful. Pyrokinesis. Electrical manipulation, earth manipulation, magnetic manipulation, wind manipulation. He grabbed every vial that had to do with controlling matter in any way. Izuku even grabbed vials from all the enhancer and amplifier quirks. What's this? Izuku's eyes widened as they landed on a quirk that was highlighted on the list with the label of further research. This blood came from a person with a quirk that could stop time. According to the information, the ability to stop time in a radius of 3 yards for 3 seconds. That alone wasn't good enough, but if he combined it with a few amplifier quirks, maybe then he'd get an all-powerful quirk. Going down the shelf, he grabbed a vial containing the sample and placed it in his case. Next, Izuku went looking for a quirk that could manipulate space, which seemed to be as rare as time manipulation. However, there was one on the list. A quirk labeled Flash Warp, which according to the description could instantaneously teleport the user up to a distance of 10 meters. He eagerly took a blood vial from that quirk user. There was another on the list that intrigued him. A quirk called Conversion. The power to alter the effects of another quirk. Basically, you take an emitter quirk and change its area of effect or the target, or reverse the effect itself. Lastly, he grabbed sample vials of all the dampening quirks, abilities that weaken the effects of other quirks. You never know if they might come in handy. Closing the case, Izuku left the vault and locked it behind him. Going back to the computer, he plugged in a drive and copied all the research data concerning the quirk users the samples came from and all the information the scientists collected on them. When he finished, the young green-haired villain took the drive out and shut down the computer. He went back down the elevator to the lobby and went back through the security checkout, making sure to grab the virus drive from the computer station there. Keep up the good work, Izuku chuckled as he patted the unconscious security guard on the shoulder before he left. Once he was outside, he returned to the alley that he changed in and found his delivery boy costume that he used still folded on the ground where he left it along with a backpack. Quickly, Izuku changed back into a delivery boy, placed his villain costume in the backpack, and wrapped the case in some leftover packaging paper to make it look inconspicuous. Once he was done, the boy left the alley heading to the main street where he blended seamlessly with the crowd. After that, Izuku caught a train back to Kamino Ward where his secret lab was located. By the time the guard or the researchers realized what happened, the thief was long gone. Thanks for listening. Check out the original work in the description.